What is going on, everyone? I'm Robert Mraz.
And I'm Fina Mraz.
And this is CV Hustle, the podcast dedicated to inspiring and informing entrepreneurship here in the Coachella Valley. And today we got a real special guest for all of you out there that love design and love jewelry. Well, this is the episode for you because today we have the owner, operator, the genius behind Covet Palm Springs, Miss Adrienne Wiley. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I'm excited to have you here. Absolutely. So, as we do with everybody, I want to know, how did it all become? Well, maybe we shouldn't get to that so quickly, right? Have you lived in Palm Springs your whole life? Are you native to our valley or what?
No, I'm not native to the valley. I'm actually from Chattanooga, Tennessee. A lot of people haven't even heard of Chattanooga, but I think it got ranked as one of the best places to live. Like during pandemic, it kind of like moved up on the list because of all the outdoor things to do. So anyway, yeah, so that's where I'm from. And I met my husband in Atlanta, and then he's from San Francisco. So a job offer moved us to San Francisco. And so we were in San Francisco from 2006 until 2020. And then August of 2020, we moved here to Palm Springs.
Did you move here because of the pandemic?
Yeah, well, sort of, because it gave us the freedom to be able to move. Yeah. And so basically we had a vacation home here and we couldn't rent in the beginning of pandemic, like they were like no rentals unless it was like essential workers or anything like that. And so our place was just sitting empty. And then my husband was working remote and all the shops were forcibly closed that weren't, essential in San Francisco. And so I was only operating online. So we were like, might as well go use our place in Palm Springs.
Why not?
And so we stayed for a month and then we left and went back home and checked on things. And then we were like, let's go back again. So we came back for another month. And we had always planned on retiring in Palm Springs, but it sort of became a reality way sooner. It was somewhere we always wanted to be. But we were like, wow, if we can pull this off and like you're going to be remote and yeah. So we went for it. Yeah. And so we moved to Palm Springs August of 2020. And then I ran my store in SF remotely for an additional year. And then in May of 2021, I opened the location in Palm Springs.
So was it online before? Was it just an online store before? Was this your first physical location or did you have one in the Bay Area as well?
No, so actually I had 3 stores in the Bay Area across 8 years. Yeah. And then I previously had a couple of outposts here in Palm Springs it was called Raymond Lawrence. I don't know if you guys remember, but it was like sort of like Mojave Flea concept before Mojave Flea came along. So it was a lot of like store-in-store, like little shops. And so I was in there for 3 or 4 years. So I kind of had proof of concept that, my products would do well in Palm Springs. So that sort of helped me when I decided to open the store.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I kind of dabbled in the area a little bit. And when I was with Raymond Lawrence, they were in Uptown, and then they also had an outpost inside the Ritz-Carlton in Rancho Mirage.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I only go like drive the Ritz to
Yeah.
every so often and think, what does it look like inside? No, I'm just kidding. So, okay, I have a question for you.
Uh-huh.
So, how did you get started in jewelry? Like, were you always very creative? Does it run? I always think the creativity it's passed down from somebody.
Yeah.
Right? And so, because I love jewelry. And I'm looking at a couple of things you've got going on. So how did that all come about?
Yeah, so I guess no one in my family is like an artist or anything like that. My dad was very, very handy, and I used to always go with him, to the hardware store, and he would do our cabinets and do the floors, and like I always watched him, so I always learned how to use my hands and enjoyed working with my hands, but I'm not good with that kind of stuff. Like, I'm a little clumsy, so I don't need to be around like jigsaws or, like
Might lose a thumb.
like like nail guns, none of that, right? So I'm like, how can I use my hands, in a kind of safe way, right? So I started being crafty at like a young age, and I always wanted to be in art classes and things like that, and my parents fostered that, which was really cool. So I hadn't really been in touch with my creative side in a while when I took a corporate job at like a Fortune 500 insurance company. So I was sitting in the cubicle and I was coding this black and white screen. I still remember it was called Merlin. It was like the insurance screen. And so I was
it was
I was
super cool.
Yeah, I was like coding enrollments.
That's very creative
and
of you.
It was so funny. My coworkers gave me like a red swing line stapler for Christmas one year because it was like, do you know the movie Office Space?
Yeah.
So it was literally like that. My boss would come in his Hawaiian shirts and like lean on the cubicle top, like.
You're on Michael?
It was definitely,
what was the name? Michael?
Yeah,
Michael
it was
Scott,
definitely
yeah.
that. And so I was like, I need some sort of creative outlet from this, right? So there was a bead store down the street from my house, and I became friends with the owner. And I took all his classes and started making a ton of different jewelry. And then at a certain point, I had so much jewelry. I was like, I'd given it to my friends to the point that they were like, okay, thanks, we're good. And I still had all this jewelry. So I started selling it to my coworkers on my lunch break. So the upper part of the cubicle, like where it flips up where you keep files, I had necklace busts in there. And then I had a coworker who had a friend who was in graphic design, so she helped me with a website and like helped me do a little logo. So I had my little boxes and stuff in the bottom drawer, and so I would kind of open up for business at lunch at work, right? And so then one of my coworkers was like, "Well, why don't you sell this to stores?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Do you need a license for that?" Like I had no clue
how to even get
So
started.
I started going out to stores on my lunch break. And so, because there were a lot of shops in Atlanta, like kind of near our building.
Sure.
So I just would go in and show them the jewelry, and then they would purchase it. And I was like, okay, so this works. So I actually, fast forward, got to 150 shops that I was carried in just going around on my
Door
own.
to door, like just walking in. That's impressive.
So I would go all the way
Wow.
to Athens. I had friends in North Carolina. I had friends in Nashville. So I would go stay for the weekend with them. And then like while they were at work, I would just like go and, sell to stores. Yeah. So I did that as sort of like a part-time thing, on the side from my main job for about a year or so. And then someone finally was like, there are trade shows, right? And I was like, oh, so that's how people do it. I was like, because this, going store to store like takes a really long time.
This kind of sucks.
Right? I was like, this is taking forever.
Uh-huh.
So I did my first trade show, and it was not great because I didn't know I was in the wrong area. Because if you know trade shows, there's so many different sections. There's like handmade. There's kind of, fast product, mass-produced products. So I was in the wrong area, surrounded by the wrong products. So I did it a second time, and it went really well. So then I started being just like a wholesale company. I didn't have the store until like way down the road. Mm-hmm. So I was just doing all the trade shows, and I got up to doing 17 a year. So I was doing 5 Atlanta, 5 New York, Vegas, and a couple of Dallas.
Wow.
And so, so I had about 900 accounts that I was constantly like selling to, in addition to like JCrew, Anthropologie, Madewell, some bigger accounts like that.
So so obviously you quit the insurance.
So I did. So I quit my job after a year of kind of, doing it on the side when I felt confident. And so I saved all my money. And I remember like going to the mall, and I was like, do I want that shirt? Do I want to wear it to my awful job? Put it back. You know what I mean? It's like, if you don't, I'm like, I can't buy anything. So I just like saved money for 6 months. And then I remember I hated that job so much. So I remember like I had my resignation letter on my desktop, and I would like update the date every day to make myself feel better and like save it again.
It's coming.
I had an empty box under my cubicle, and people would be like, what's that box for? I'd be like, don't worry about it. And then one day
that's your go bag, right? Like turn that letter and go.
And I was so excited. And I remember I was like, either you guys will see me on the pages of InStyle, or I'll be folding khakis at the Gap. Either way, I'm out of here. Here's my Hotmail account. And then I pulled out my little box and packed up my stuff, and that was it.
Wow.
Oh my God, I love it.
That is awesome. That's like a skit in like a Saturday Night Live right
Yeah, they should have done that skit in the office.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. You're ready to go. It's like your emergency kit, you're supposed to have. You just had it for work,
Exactly.
Get out of there. That's awesome.
If I can have one of those. Okay, so what? Okay, I'm like figuring out. So you said you had 150 stores. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? Does that mean like you sold once to a store, or like?
Some were once, but most of them would become customers, repeat customers. So I would sell to them on pretty much like maybe every couple months people place reorders.
But so are you the only one
So
producing
you're a
it
wholesaler
though?
at this price, right? You're
Yeah.
just a wholesaler
Yeah.
going into the big box stores and selling.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So I did that for a number of years before.
But it's just
opening the
you
store.
making the jewelry
So
by
at first it
yourself?
was.
Okay.
And then
I was gonna say 150
Yeah.
stores. You got to start slanging some
yeah.
jewelry.
For 150 it was just me that whole time. And then I opened the store and then got help. I actually didn't have help until, gosh, now I look back and that's like really insane.
Right?
But I didn't have like full-time help until I opened the store and then opened an office and then had people in the office.
Doing
But
that.
for a little bit before I opened the store, I actually was finding people that enjoyed making jewelry as a hobby but couldn't really make it into a business. So they would make the jewelry for me. So I would sort of have the components ready for them. They would pick up for me. They would bring it back.
it.
I would quality check everything and then it would go out.
Wow.
Yeah. So I kind of operated like that for a while.
See, and I think like jewelry making, you have to have patience, which I don't have. And then you have to, because it's so tedious,
Yeah.
right? It's just like, oh my God. It's like, I have so many ideas. Can I give you my ideas and you make them for me? And like, I've got some really great ideas about jewelry and what I'd love to see and stuff. But man, to sit there, I'd be like, oh, forget it. I can't do it.
Wow.
My ADHD doesn't let me sit there for like, hours or just to do it.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'm bored.
I
But-
find it really relaxing, but it's like, I mean, of course, I'm sure you know, the bigger your business gets, like the less time you actually have to spend. So it's kind of a treat now if I get to spend a day just like,
like, oh, the good old
experimenting with
days.
all new stuff, and like, yeah.
You're all home sweet
Yeah,
home.
right?
Takes you back, right, to the good old days. It's just
Exactly.
you and 150 accounts doing them by hand, right?
So, like, did you start with earrings or anything in particular that was like your
So,
staple?
I started out with earrings and necklaces, and I used to be super vintage inspired in the beginning, like using dead stock vintage stampings and stuff like that. And then over time, I kind of evolved into daintier stuff, and now I feel like we're dainty, but it still has like a nod to vintage a little bit, like some of the shapes and stuff, but it's more contemporary.
So when you work with vintage, because every time I think of vintage, I have a girlfriend who she buys vintage and it's pricey.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm assuming that if you're doing like vintage jewelry, it's probably, is it pricey? Like what's it?
Yeah, well, I was using vintage, either just the components and to create vintage inspired pieces. So I wasn't actually using vintage
Actual
components
pieces.
that much.
Okay.
If we did, it was like vintage glass beads or different things like that. They were kind of more affordable individual pieces.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then are you the one coming up with all the designs or?
Yeah, I come up with all the designs. So I'm basically inspired, like, mostly by my travels. Yeah. And so I see, like, cool designs, like, maybe in, like, a mosque in Dubai or, like,
Wow.
when
That's some
I'm
fun
in
R&D,
Kyoto or
huh?
something.
You
Yeah,
get to
yeah.
travel, and that's like your R&D, just going. Do you go to like local markets and just see what
Yeah.
the locals are wearing and be inspired that way?
Yeah, a lot of times, like, it's architecture inspires me a lot because I love all the shapes,
yeah.
But also, yeah, the fashion as well. And then I also bring in brands into the store from when I'm traveling. So I'll find cool brands like in Japan or London or Mexico
awesome.
City and like bring those independent makers like into the store.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's a
For,
good
like, other
excuse to
gift guides. So
travel.
it's a nice, like, little-
That's a great little write off for the business, huh? Go R&D.
Talk about write-offs.
R&D. So you said you were a wholesaler for 150, like basically around where you were, right? Big box stores. When did the store kind of become on your radar? Something that you kind of
So,
figured,
it's-
hey, we can expand this a
Yeah,
little bit.
it's funny. Like for years, I didn't want a store because I knew so many store owners, and they all felt like trapped in their stores. Do you know what I mean? So they would be so excited when I came to drop off stuff, especially if it's been like a quiet day or something. They'd be like, "Oh God, like I've been here all day. Like, hey, it's so good to see another person." And I remember leaving those stores and being like, "Gosh, that seems like crappy. Like I get to walk out of there and like have my day, and like they're just stuck in the store." And so I'm like, it's really funny that I'm like ended up doing that. So I jokingly say I was an accidental retailer. So because I honestly that wasn't what I wanted.
No.
So I opened a studio in San Francisco. So we left Atlanta in 2006 and then moved to San Francisco. And so I just worked from home for a couple years, but then I wanted a studio space, right? So I ended up finding a studio in the Mission District of San
Oh, I know
Francisco.
that.
If you're
We know
familiar.
that
Yeah,
we
it's
know
kind of
that
like an
district.
artsy
Yeah.
area, right? And so I found a studio there, and it was a new converted studio space. And they kind of sold me on like, oh, we have open studios, once a week, and people can come shop and look around your space. And I'm like, great, that's perfect. Because at least if I can sell enough jewelry to kind of break even for the rent payment, then I'm not paying for having a studio, right? It's just... So that was a big sort of selling point for me for renting that space. And then I moved in, and the open studios like never happened, or if they did, they weren't well promoted or whatever. So I started looking for a different space with sort of street visibility, right?
Yeah.
Because this one was like inside of a building. So I found a space, and it was like a little space, probably, I think it was like 400 square feet or something.
That's all you really need, right?
Yeah. So it was half of that was downstairs. You walked up 6 stairs, and then the rest of it was up top. And so my thing was I could have my desk and everything up top and then sell stuff down at the bottom.
Oh, so it's
And
perfect.
then, yeah, exactly. And then, you could look right over the little rail and see who comes in and be like, hi, and help people. And I could work upstairs and have a mess and not have to worry about keeping that tidy.
Great.
So it was perfect, right? So I worked like that for probably I opened it in 2009. And for the first 3 months, it was just me and my stuff and making stuff, and people would come in, and it was working, right? It was good. It was working. And I was like, this is a great idea. So then I got contacted by the Chronicle, and ended up being, they wanted to highlight me. And so I thought it would be like a little blurb somewhere in there. I was like, okay, this is great. This is fine. So I ended up being on the front page of the style section.
Oh, shoot.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so I was so excited and so honored, but it maybe like a week later or something, I came to the store, and I remember I parked, and San Francisco parking is horrible. So I was like walking from really far away. And so
3 miles down the road.
Exactly. So it was like a block and a half around the corner, and I was like, what are all these people waiting for? Like, I was like, did the bakery like drop a new flavor? Because I had a bakery next door. And then that was the time when Pokemon was really
Oh,
huge.
you were like, are they trying to find a
I was like, are
Pokemon?
they trying to find Pokemon? Because that was the thing. People would be
Oh,
clustered
yeah.
up.
We know. We've spent a lot of money on
So
that.
I was like, what is going on? So I ran the corner, and they were waiting for my store. Like, the article had come out, and people had the paper with them, and were like, yeah, it was so exciting.
Oh, my gosh.
To this day, I was like, wow, that's
It's
such
exciting
an
and
outpouring
terrifying
of
at the
support.
same time.
Yeah. And so it was.
Yeah.
And so that kind of set me on the retailer trajectory, because after that, people knew about the location. So they were coming every day. Wow. And I was like, oh, so I need hours now. Because I was just there when I was there. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was just, I had no hours
Stop
on the
on
door.
in
That's awesome.
I was like, if I'm there, I'm going to open the store. If I'm not, I'm going to close it. It was a studio, right? So it wasn't a retail store, so I could be there when I wanted to be. So then people were like, oh, what are your hours tomorrow? And I'm like, guess I'll be here tomorrow.
Yeah.
Opening the store up. So so I ended up having to hire an employee, right?
Yeah.
Because I couldn't make the jewelry and run the other part of the wholesale business and be in the store.
Gosh.
So for a while, she would sit downstairs, and it was so funny because it was a 200 square feet, and she'd be like at a little teeny desk down there, and then I'd be upstairs. And so I was like, this is just weird. And then people kept coming up the stairs, like trying to see what I was doing, which I'm excited that they were excited, but it's like, I'm trying to get stuff done. And
like,
people are picking things up like, can I buy this? Can I put this on a necklace? I'm like, no, that's somebody's wholesale order. Leave it alone.
You should be like, this is limited edition up here.
Exactly, right? So I ended up getting an office space down the street. And so I moved my operations into there. And that's when I could hire a production manager and like all that stuff. And then I just made that into a store.
Perfect. So she had 400 square feet.
Right? Exactly. She could go up and down. She could see,
Wow. But that article really changed the trajectory of your business, right?
Changed the trajectory.
That's speaks to the power of
true,
media, right?
Right?
I don't know if it's before social media time, but probably like
kind of
on the cusp.
I'm not dating myself, but it was kind of on the cusp.
Let's not date. Let's not talk about dates. But let me ask you this. So do you think it was somebody that came in and bought a piece of jewelry and was like, oh my God, like how do you think that came about with the Chronicle?
I don't know. Like,
you never asked?
No, she said that, the woman who interviewed me said that someone else had shopped and told her about it, but I don't know who that person was.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
That's
secret
freaking awesome.
Secret shopper, huh?
So it was really, really cool.
So it was very organic then. It wasn't like you paid for them to come feature your business. That's pretty awesome.
Oh my
Yeah,
That,
and
that
so
speaks to your talent though, right?
Thanks.
I mean, that's crazy. You had a line up. I'd be terrified if somebody's lined up down my office. I'd be turning around going home. I'm like, I ain't going in there.
Very stressful.
That looks like trouble right there, you know?
Exactly.
But that's awesome.
But it was 100%. I was an accidental retailer. So yeah, so then I had a store.
And to
then,
be, honey, sometimes you just get pushed in that certain direction, and
Exactly.
you're like, all right, fine.
And so then a couple years passed, and then I opened another store in the Union Street area of like the
Union
Marina.
Square?
Not Union Square, like Union Street, like the Marina District.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah. And then I opened one in the inner Sunset area, like on 7th and Irving. It's sort of like
So you were running
the other side of the
3
park.
stores at the same time at this point?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, a logistical nightmare, huh?
Yeah, and then I opened the 2 outposts here.
Oh.
Like, so I didn't have to run the day-to-day operations of those, but like, still had to make sure the inventory was up to date and like, all that stuff. So yeah, I was kind of running 5 things at once, and then 3 stores, 2 outposts, and still doing 17 trade shows.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's a lot.
Yeah. And then no one in SF has cars. Like, a lot of people don't drive, so none of my employees drove. So if something happened, right, it's like, oh, we're out of toilet paper. I would be like, okay. I had 3 bins in the back of my car. And so everything, there was like a U for Union, S for Sunset, I for A for Arguello. And so I had like everything binned out for what needs to go to what store.
Oh
like
my
they're out of
gosh.
tags, they're out of toilet paper, we need shopping bags, they need printing paper, you know what I mean? So I was just riding around like dropping stuff off, and I was like, hey, so I'm a courier.
Yeah, you became a delivery driver during that time, huh?
Okay, so then
Exactly.
this comes. Okay, first of all, I have a question I want to jump back to. Do you dream about your designs? Because like, I can be like, okay, somebody wants to do something, and I'm like, and before you know it, I wake up and I'm like, oh, that's what I'm gonna do. Sometimes. So anyway, I just thought maybe that happens to you. How you come up with designs.
No, not really. I would say, honestly, I don't dream that much. I'm like, I don't know if I'm like...
You're like, I'm dead
too
asleep,
tired.
girl.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know if I'm too tired to dream.
Right.
Like, good ideas don't come to me in my dreams. Some
I'm
people
too tired to dream.
Yeah, some people can, like, say they keep their notebook and it's like, oh, I had this great idea. For me, that happens when I'm traveling, because I think it's like I'm on a break and like I have enough mental space to like sort of let the new ideas come in. Yeah.
That's true. No, and it is travel. You go somewhere and you're just like, everything to me I can make into a tile. You know what I mean? It's like, so prints, you name it. Like,
so
right?
it's like I'm looking at things like and taking more time and discovering new stuff. So that's when I have my best ideas, and also problem solve a lot on vacation. Because it's like you're so in the trenches, like trying to do your day-to-day stuff.
Trying to survive the
like,
day.
Right? And then when you don't have all that stuff on you for a minute, it's like, oh, wait, that's a perfect solution for that, So, yeah.
Huh.
So you take your travel time very seriously.
Yeah, right? Get a lot done.
I mean, you do. It sounds like you're creating new lines and all that, and then problem solving. But so back to San Francisco, so you kind of already explained how you kind of ended up down here. What was the inflection point where you're like, okay, maybe all these stores are not really what I want to do with the business, and because those other stores still around, the 3?
No, so basically the Union Street store I ended up closing because it all sort of like organically, they organically opened, they organically closed. But Union Street became sort of a workout street. So Soul Cycle opened over there, and with it brought all of the other workout related things. So the street just totally became like, it took over all the independent retailers. It was all the different, like then Lululemon came, and then the other, Athleta, like all the different brands showed up. Yeah. And so that sort of became the focus of the street.
So you're like,
Yeah,
all right, I'm out
and
here.
so people didn't find it as much of like, the tourists aren't coming because they can see those things at home,
Right.
And then the locals, unless you're working out, then you're working out and you're getting all sweaty and then you're going home. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's just, you're just kind of running an errand over there. So it became less of like a meandering kind of like fun shopping street. And that was a valuable lesson in learning when it's time to go. I was the last person. Like for probably about a year, people would walk into my store and be like, oh my God, this is so cute. Where are there more stores like this? And it got harder and harder to the point where I was sending them to another neighborhood, which was Fillmore, which was up the way. And I didn't have any other place to send them on Union, really. Like all my friends and neighbors that had independent cool shops were gone. Yeah. And so definitely no one to go.
No one to fold them,
Yeah,
right?
no one to fold them. So I was probably about, I was a year too late. I could have let that go a year sooner in hindsight. Yeah.
Yeah, you always want to be a year early than a
Right?
year late, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And you know what? I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, all right, this one, outlived it lived its life and now it's time to move on. I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, and sometimes it's like it's being a smart business person, right? Because
Totally.
it's like you're taking time and energy and revenue. Like it was taking revenue from the stores that were working, and I could have been using it to grow those stores and do better things for them, and I was using it to keep this one afloat. You know what I mean? So that was a valuable lesson. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
for
then the Sunset store, the owner, she was like, I think she was like 90 when I moved in, and then her son took over, and it happened a lot in San Francisco, like when kids
they always ruin the business.
They're like,
Kids always ruin
now
it.
we're gonna quadruple this rent, you know what I mean? Because like they're like, I'm gonna live off this rent,
they're like,
and so yeah.
So that
that's
was another
what-
sign.
that's
they're
what
like,
happened with that
they're
one.
like, I'm gonna forget
yeah, when
this.
your rent keeps going up, it's time to go. And that's how they pushed his dad out of his dentist office.
Yeah,
his
and
dad
then,
had a dentistry business for like forever.
30
in this
years,
one spot.
30 years, and they came in and
Yeah.
tripled the rent
Tripled
one
the
day.
rent.
That's what
I was like,
happens.
what
It
the-
was They actually started putting a tax on vacancies in San Francisco because of that, because people were jacking up the rents to crazy amounts and then just letting them sit vacant. Like across the street from me and up a little bit, there was a vacant space. It was a woman who had been in business with a dress shop for 30 years. They 6X'd her rent, kicked her out. It sat
Wow.
vacant for 3 years until a major fragrance brand moved in.
6
Like a
years?
chain and
Wow.
paid that rent.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
That's crazy.
But it's like, meanwhile, it's like you're sort of stifling small business because no one can afford anything, to
Oh,
move
yeah.
in. So that's why they put those taxes on it if people let it sit too long now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
that's
San
kinda
Francisco's
smart.
pretty known for their rent control initiatives and stuff like
Yeah,
that. But
exactly.
yeah, that's crazy. That,
Yeah.
that was the other sign. Like, okay,
Exactly.
time to
Yeah.
go to where the profit is, right?
So when pandemic hit, I just had the store on Arguello. And that was the original store. And so, again, everything was forcibly closed, right? So we moved here, and then I reopened that store and was running it remotely. But there was just so much crime, like after, because a lot of San Francisco took a while to kind of reopen, more, longer than other places. And so, like, the buildings were still boarded up because break-ins were happening. So it was like my whole street kind of had particle board over the windows and stuff. The restaurants didn't want to expose their glass because they were doing smash and grabs.
Wow.
People were leaving their windows down in their Teslas and like all their cars, like saying like, please don't rob me. It's like nothing's in here. Leaving their glove boxes open.
Wow.
What?
Yeah.
The city put signs up saying like, don't leave anything exposed in your car because the tourists were the ones mainly getting hit, right?
Right.
You leave a jacket in the back. Someone will break in for that in 2 seconds.
Oh wow, that sucks.
And
Crazy.
so it was a problem before, but it got way worse with pandemic. So we had 6 break-in attempts and 3 break-ins over a 2-year period.
6 break-in attempts in 2 years.
Yep.
Same location.
Yep.
Wow.
It was the Arguello location, the one that I still had. And it's like sometimes we would come in and we would see little metal coils on the ground where they had tried to drill the lock.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Wow.
dude.
Or like they had tried to etch into the glass enough to like be able to pop it. Yeah. And then one guy broke in with a motorcycle helmet on and a briefcase and like crawled in and then like took jewelry. And it's like my jewelry's 14 karat gold filled. So it's what they call demi-precious, but it doesn't have like a street value like
Yeah,
that.
it's not like
you can
It's
go
not
cash it in
solid
for-
gold. Yeah.
Right. And these criminals didn't know the difference,
Those-
apparently.
Those numb nuts.
Exactly. I'm like,
Wow.
yeah.
So crime and
They were taking
and
vegan leather purses. I'm like, that's no street value. It was the insurance
eat
payment
it.
was the biggest thing. It's like for
Right.
the door and the glass is expensive and yeah.
Oh my gosh.
gosh.
So when you were saying you were wholesaling, so okay, so that Aguilo, am I saying that right? I don't know.
Yeah, it's called Arguello is the street.
Arguello.
But yeah, so that was sort of a lot of my decision to finally close that down because it didn't rebound. People weren't out and about like they were in that neighborhood
Yeah.
before. And then also the break-ins and stuff, I started being worried about the safety of my girls too because some of my
Right.
neighbors had like people come in, and like, yell at the employees and just grab stuff while they were open and
Oh my
run. And like,
gosh.
so it just,
The Wild
Yeah, it
West,
wasn't worth it
man.
anymore.
yeah,
You're
it
just
just
like,
didn't feel
Wild
good.
West.
Meanwhile, I'd opened the store here in Palm Springs and it was like, every day was amazing. I was like,
sun was shining, the birds were
I was
singing.
like, yeah, because sometimes, it was like San Francisco that last year I was open had like atmospheric rivers and stuff, like the whole like really bad weather. And the girls would be like, the door keeps blowing open and whatever. And I'm all like, so sunny.
No rain down here.
Right?
No
And
rain
then
in the desert.
everyone in SF, like, we come into the store and, people had already fought for the parking and, like the bakery line next door is long. And so they always had a reason to kind of be like upset, right?
Yeah.
So we'd be like, hi, welcome. They'd be like, I'm just looking. I'm like, okay. And meanwhile here, everyone either they're here because they want to be, right? Or you feel lucky that you live here, you're on vacation here and you feel lucky about that. So people have like the best attitude. So everyone's
you know
like
what?
happy. Yeah.
Palm Springs has a great vibe.
Yeah.
I mean, the way no matter which way you slice it, I mean, it really does. Just walking downtown, and the other day we went out for my brother's birthday, and I was like, I'm gonna go over there and buy him a present at a small business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I love that. And then of course I picked myself up a couple things. We were heading to Belize, so I needed some clothes. But I mean, that's what I love about Palm Springs are all the tiny little shops, and
Yeah.
so okay. So how did you end up? So you ended up here. Well, first of all, I can't even believe you came in August and then you said you liked it. So number one,
No, it was rough.
Yeah, especially in the Bay Area.
It was really rough.
I was gonna say, I hate when people go, I love the heat. That's what I'm like. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
I'm like, let's switch places. I'll come to your place
Right?
in the when it's hot as hell down here. But anyway, so you came and you were here, and then how did you meet up with? You're inside of Flannery Exchange, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, how did that all?
So, I didn't have any interest in opening another store. I had the San Francisco one. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it at that point. I didn't know, how it was going to be post-pandemic. But a friend of mine had told me that the Flannery was turning, it was going to be a co-working space at first, right?
Yeah.
And then they pivoted and put retail in there. And she was like, oh my gosh, like you have to see this space. And I was like, well, I don't know. I don't think I really want to do a store anymore. I had signed up to get my real estate license.
Wow.
I was like,
Career
I guess I'm
pivot,
just gonna
huh?
do something different. Yeah. And so then I went to see the space, and I remember Mike, the owner, was walking me through and telling me about it, and it was at the very beginning. So it had no walls, no nothing. The coffee shop wasn't open. I think, like, if you know it, the pink X in the front, I think that was there, but everything else had been delivered, but was just kind of all sitting around,
Mm-hmm.
And so he was explaining it to me, like, this is going to be like this, and this wall's going to be here, and this can be your space. And I don't know, I guess it was maybe just because the timing of it all, because it was still pandemic, We were coming out of it, but not yet. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I just couldn't see the vision yet, right? So he offered me the space, and I was like, no, I think I'm going to pass, but thank you so much, And so then I want to say that was November of 2020. Yeah, that was November. And then February came and they opened, right? February 2021, and they opened. And I remember I was driving down the street and I was like, what? I was like, oh my God, that's that space. So I pulled in, I went in, and I was instantly, my heart sank. I was like, damn, this is so cute. I was like, I missed out. And then I was looking at the coffee shop. I was like, this is 1000% my vibe for the store. You know what I mean? It's like, it would have been a really good thing. And so I was about to walk out, and then I saw Erica, the wife of Mike, the owner. And so I said, hey, I met Mike, and I think I'd met her really briefly, like she was at the building too. And I was like, I met you a few months ago. I said, if anything changes, I know that Mike has booked everything is rented out, but I was like, if anything changes, let me know. And she was like, okay, cool. I was like, because I made a mistake. This is super cute. And she was like, okay, great. 3 days later, he called me. Something had changed, and a spot had opened up.
Oh, my gosh. Yep. Talk about, I'm glad you went in there, right?
Yeah, right? Yeah, because there was originally going to be a salon taking up 2 of the spaces. And so something had happened, like it couldn't, I think the water or something, it just couldn't be done, you know? And so, anyway, the spots were open, and he asked me, did I want one or both of them? And I started small. I was like, oh, I want to start small. So I took one. And then a really good friend of mine that owns a stationery shop, at the time she was only online, moved to town around the same time I did. And so we met for coffee, and I was like, hey, I'm going to move into the space. Like, it's really cool. And she was like, I don't want to do retail again. I don't want to. And I was like, I know, but let me just show it to you. And then she saw it, and she's like, yep. All right. So I'm going to have a store. So we both got sucked in. So, yeah, that's one of my really good friends. So she's my neighbor now. And, yeah. And now since then, one of her really good friends has moved in with a dog store. And then, yeah. There's like cute plant store. So it's just been like growing and growing and growing. It's really cool.
Okay, so I think I told you. So I went to go see the Exchange, but they were like major construction. Like there was nothing.
Yeah.
And so I remember Mike had taken us upstairs because they had that big, huge room, right, that goes on the rooftop. Yep. And so he was telling me what it was going to be and all of this. And at the time we had our showroom in Palm Springs on Palm Canyon, and we weren't sure what we were going to do with it because I rented that store in March when the weather was beautiful, and then summertime came and we didn't realize we didn't have AC.
No.
So we were like,
that's not really feasible. You can't really do that in the desert.
No.
Can't run no retail.
They lied to me. Okay, anyway. So we were like, okay, we're going to get out of our lease because our lease was over anyway. And so we were looking for a space. However, these spaces were too small.
Yeah.
They were like 300 or 400 square feet. And I was like, I just can't. That's too small. Like I wasn't even sure how to really like manage a place that's kind of tiny. Like I could see a jewelry shop. Perfect.
Yeah, we can put a lot of stuff in
yeah,
there.
yeah, exactly. So I ended up not taking a space, and we ended up getting something on Talkwitz. So I'm on Talkwitz in Indian. And so it's like 1,000 square feet. But anyway, so that's how that all came about.
Yeah,
and
that's so funny.
yeah, but it's such a cute place. And I love, she named it La Jefa.
Yeah.
She don't play.
That sounds
It's
right
like
up your alley.
It's a perfect space, and I love it. I actually jokingly call it like my retail retirement because like San Francisco is so much different having a business. Like I would go early to like, clean graffiti off the window or like pick crap out of my planter or, whatever. And now it's like, it's just nice and easy and like everything stays organized and yeah.
There you go.
And so I have great neighbors and like it's like a fun little community and yeah.
So how many stores are in there, would you say?
Let's see.
Like
2, 3,
10
4,
or
5.
so?
No, 5.
5?
Yeah.
So it's the dog people and then the stationery?
There's Bean Goods, there's Bobo, there's Los Angeles, there's Savage Art Gallery, and there's me.
Oh, yeah. Very cool. And I know they were making that cute little patio area, right?
Yeah, and that's only gotten cuter and cuter. Like, it's funny, I look back on it, and I remember always thinking that it was a great, like, really cute space. And now I'm like, oh, they've made it even cuter.
Right?
Like, yeah, so now there's, like, tiki torches and all the greenery outside and, like, the cute little pickup window.
Yeah.
And the Airstreams out there. And
yeah, that's what I thought. There was an Airstream, right? And they're making drinks out of it, right?
Yeah.
Something?
Yeah, they did have a bar in there. I think they're going to do something else with it soon. But, yeah, and then it sort of went through a few changes inside. So we started out, I was really teeny, like maybe 150 square feet. It was super small, like when you saw it.
Yeah.
And then we expanded like by 50%. And then we expanded by 50% again. Because there used to be desks behind the stores because they were still sort of figuring out if the co-working would work.
Right.
But then they decided to just expand all the way and make it full retail. So yeah, so over the 3 years, it'll be 4 years in May, but I've done 2 expansions.
Wow.
Yeah.
That means the space is doing what it's supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
Driving traffic, right?
Yeah.
You kind of mentioned you have your online presence. You're kind of like, your business was kind of built for online, wasn't it? I mean, the jewelry and people can kind of follow you via social media. Is that something in the future? Do you see that kind of being a big part of your business? Or is it a big part of your business right now? Or
don't know. I will be 100% honest. I suck at online.
But you were doing it, right, for a while? So it didn't just become...
No, I had the website, but it was never a thing.
Well, I was going to tell you to help me set up mine.
No. I mean, full disclosure, I can make a good-looking website. Like, you'll go to it, and it looks good. It looks like it might be successful. Visually, because I love visuals. So I love, like, merchandising a great space, like, creating sort of an environment for people to, like, love. That's my favorite thing.
right.
That's what I love about the trade shows, like setting up the booths and like I love that stuff. So the part I love about online is making it look good, right? So I love having great photos and making engaging content and all that stuff. but I know nothing about SEO, like, funnels, like driving traffic. And for jewelry, it is so, so, so competitive.
Oh, I would bet.
Like, even though, even if you kind of dial down into your niche of the type of jewelry, it's just insanely competitive. Like, the keywords, like purchasing ads, like all this stuff for jewelry is just astronomical and really competitive. And I do not know what I'm doing.
Oh, okay, but don't you go, okay, I'm going to hire somebody out because I need that, but I've
tried, and I actually had a local brand that did Ihana Space. Shout out to them. They did a good job. So they actually used to do the marketing and stuff for the Flannery. And so I saw that they did a really good job with that. So it was great. I didn't have to like vet them. I already kind of knew them. And so they helped me with the SEO. And so now we rank like number 1, I think, for if you Google like permanent jewelry Palm Springs. And so we're ranking wise, we do good for visibility, but it's still just like something's up with like the whole cart flow or something. You know what I mean? Like I know it needs to be tweaked.
Right.
Yeah. But it's so hard. Like it's just finding the time, because that's an entire other job.
That's a totally different business.
Entity.
Totally
I have
different
friends
business,
that have
right?
very successful online businesses, and it's just very interesting and eye-opening to see just how much time they spend on it. It's probably more time than they spend on their retail.
Oh yeah,
They're spending on that
for sure.
Yeah,
It's
and
like
I mean,
a
just
whole different...
constantly cranking out the content, and I mean, it's so I kind of am like, I don't know if I
kind of
want
okay
that.
with
You know
that.
what I mean? Like I don't know if I want to devote that much time to it, because I really do love like focusing on the in-store experience. And then we also have a hat bar now in the store where you can pick your patches, and we heat press your hat, and then you can also adorn like a felt hat, with like accents. We have the permanent jewelry. And then I'm currently learning a laser machine, like a laser etching machine.
Yeah.
So we can do like engraving and stuff like that. And then we have a charm bar with like 150 charms, and you can make purse, like the little purse chains that are popular now.
Oh.
So you can make those, necklaces, bracelets. Yeah. So we have a lot of fun interactive experiences that people love doing when they come to Palm Springs.
Sure.
It's great for the groups and stuff like that. And then, I'm doing a pop-up for an influencer hospitality suite for Coachella. And so
that's
I'd
awesome.
really like to take it more in that direction. I think the time and energy versus devoting that to the website, I would rather focus more on like doing more events and stuff like that with our interactive things.
Yeah, because then and you also get to meet people. You obviously got a great personality, very bubbly and stuff. So I'm sure you need that social interaction, right? I would think so.
So I love that stuff. So I think that's where the focus is going to be, like trying to grow that more so.
So when you say permanent jewelry, what does that mean?
So it's basically like we have a bunch of different chains. I think we have 18 different options now, and a bunch of little charms. And so we fit it to you. So it's custom fitted for you. And then we spark it. It's basically a cold solder. So you know how if you solder something, normally it's like a bunch of metal like dripping.
You're putting on
Can't
your
do
big
that,
mask.
right? Yeah, so because we use tiny jump rings to attach the bracelets, you can actually sort of create that same reaction, but with electricity. So it's like such a hot electrical flash that it sort of melts those ends of the jump ring together and creates a sort of a cold solder, they call it. So it's a safe way to do it, like on your wrist. So we just put a little piece of leather between you and like our little like pin for sparking, and then.
Well, what if you want to take it off?
You can actually cut them off with scissors.
You'd cut it off?
Yeah. You can cut it off with scissors.
Hence the word permanent.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. Permanent.
It's permanent till you take it off.
In air quotes, right? And so but I mean, like, for example, these that I have on, I've had them on for 2 years, like since we first started
2
doing
years?
it. And I mean, shower, and you're not supposed to go in like, put it in like sulfur, sulfur hot springs or whatever. I've been in all that stuff, and it's totally fine. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And it's nice.
Cool.
Like, you don't have to worry about it. They're just there all the time. And we use dainty chains, so you really don't even feel that they're there. And we also use that for safety reasons, because if you ever get it caught on something, it'll snap. It won't hurt you. And then you can always just, like, come back and we'll spark it back on for you if need be.
Wow.
Yeah.
I need to come down and get some jewelry. I love
She
jewelry.
loves jewelry.
Whenever we go, like when we travel, it's like when we went to Barcelona. Oh, that was my favorite, because they've got those big buildings, and then all down, on the first story is all the little businesses.
You were probably all about the architecture, all the tiles,
Oh,
like
yeah.
the Gaudi architecture, and the
We went to Lisbon on purpose because there's all these, all those buildings are just full of
covered in
tile.
So pretty.
It's like, what the hell?
Yeah, so
I mean,
pretty.
that was a lot of money to do something like that. But that was really, really cool. So
Beautiful. It was beautiful.
take me back.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite places.
We want to
It's
go to
so pretty.
Porto next.
Yeah,
We've never
we went there for the day. Yeah, but it was
Ooh.
really nice.
Did you go to Lisbon?
Yeah, so we spent a week in Lisbon, went to Porto, and then actually we spent the night in Porto, and then went to Sintra, which is like a little bit further.
Yeah, I've
beyond.
heard of that one
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
and we
It
didn't
was
go to
really
that.
nice.
But we stayed for a while in Lisbon. We had I loved my hotel. It was awesome. How you walk in and it just smelled so beautiful. I was like, these people know what they're
it's
doing.
so
Those
pretty,
Europeans
and
know
food was
luxury,
good,
don't
and
they?
Yeah,
Food was
it was just
good.
really,
we
it
love-
was so charming.
We
yeah.
love Portugal. But in my research of your company, I saw that you also had some media. The New York Times kind of featured you
that
guys.
was recent. It
Yeah, I
was so
saw.
exciting.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I
You
didn't know that was happening.
Yeah, like I wanted to kind of ask you about that experience. I mean, is that another one of these things where it kind of just caught you flat-footed and you were like,
Did not know that was happening.
Really?
So I came into the store and I was dropping something off for Steph, like who works at the store on weekends, and I'm like, I don't think I was had any makeup on or anything. I was literally just running an errand into the store, dropping something
Don't
off
talk to me.
super
Don't talk
quick.
to me.
Yeah, so I like ran in and she was like, she's super sweet and very bubbly and she's always happy to see me, which I so appreciate. But like she was extra happy to see me. And I was like, okay, Steph. Because I usually don't like, I kind of beeline for the desk. So I just like, weave through the people and like give her whatever I need to give her. So I didn't really even notice that the few people were in the store. And so she's like, oh my God, you're here. And I'm like, okay, yay. Like, I'm
Yeah.
here. And so she's like, no, there's this guy here. And I was like, okay. I was like, hi. And I introduced myself. And she was like, he's from the New York Times. I was like, oh, yes. Okay. So I see why you're excited that I'm here. And so he was very, very nice, the photographer. And he, like, we didn't end up getting a photo because it was like 36 hours in Palm Springs and they only used a couple of photos to represent like the entire article.
right?
But he was taking photos of, like all the shops. And also my shop neighbor, Angie, for Bobo was featured too. So he was taking pictures like between our stores. But yeah, I had no idea. I was like, so you're a photographer for the New York Times? And he was like, yeah. And he was like, did you know I was coming? I was like, nope.
Oh my
And he
gosh.
was like, oh, I'm sorry. No, a lot of people haven't known I was coming. And so I guess
you off
like,
guard.
yeah, I guess she reached out to some people. They didn't reach out to others, but I don't think they gave anyone like an exact date for when the photos were happening or anything like that. And so, yeah, I was like, I'm sorry, we have not tidied up.
And quick.
Yeah, I was like, let me know if you need me any photos. I can go fix this.
That's so
But yeah, so it was it was an awesome honor and such a great surprise.
Heck
and
yeah.
then when it came out, I posted about it and then tagged the writer, and she wrote me the sweetest, like 3-paragraph message in DMs about how much she loved my store.
Oh my
and like
gosh.
how, she had hoped that the article really helped out. And like, yeah, it was just the sweetest, like it literally almost made me start crying. It was like the sweetest note ever.
nice.
So,
You're like, I
yeah.
must be doing something right.
I know. I was like, oh, yeah.
But once again, that was not solicited by you or your company. It's just you do good work and people notice it and the media comes calling, right? I mean, that's pretty impressive because, I mean, people pay for that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we're always throwing money at advertising and stuff like that to kind of get our names out there. You're getting free, big advertisement, but I think it just speaks to the quality of your shop, So that's awesome. That's awesome.
So do you advertise?
No, I don't. I mean, I boost some posts on Instagram.
Yeah, there's my.
That's about the extent, yeah.
No, I totally get that, because we were we've discussed a couple things like Palm Springs Life and those kinds of
Oh,
things.
I was in that
and
guide, the Palm Springs Life guide.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I paid to do that last year. The little one that goes into all the hotel rooms and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's really cool, and I love how it's handheld. Like the little people can take it with them.
I wonder if that's the September issue. No. The September issue is like the hardcover.
Yeah, I think
But
it
I don't-
comes out
maybe it
with
was-
that.
okay.
Like, so there's the hardcover, but then there's like the guide edition, like of the soft magazine, and then it's tucked in there. But then also it's at all the different stores, like sort of on the cash wrap, like because it's pretty small. The only thing that's hard about it is there's no way to really track who's coming from it or who's seeing it, or
Yeah.
So it's one of those things you just have to do it and kind of hope that it's getting good reach.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you don't ask people how they heard about you. I mean, when people walk in our doors, I always ask, like, how did you hear about us? Especially if I don't know them. And all the time it's like, oh, Google. It's almost always Google.
For us, a lot, it's, because the coffee shop, people just kind of like come in and they're
Yeah,
like,
mosey
surprise, shops are in here. You know, so
Yeah.
honestly, we get a lot of that. People are like,
The
yay.
best.
Yeah.
It worked out really well,
Right?
their vision.
Yeah,
Totally.
so that's really cool. But when people we always ask when people get permanent jewelry because we're chit-chatting with them more. We're like, how'd you find us? And what's funny is a lot of it, I would say probably the number one way is TikTok and Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah, baby.
Social media,
I
huh?
love me
And
some
I-
TikTok.
I am not even
I love it.
on TikTok.
Even though it's banned.
Like I don't. So my other team member Jordan. So Jordan is a film student and is really great with making TikToks, and she makes our reels and all that stuff. So yeah, I used to do it and post on TikTok like every blue moon, but she does it for us now and like post on a regular basis.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah, social media is where everything's going.
Yeah,
You gotta
no,
go
I
where the
love
eyeballs.
Instagram and I'm really good with that. But
I do like
like
Instagram.
TikTok, I don't. Like, I end up down the rabbit hole, like, doing other stuff on TikTok. I'm like, what happened here? I came out here to post, and now I'm looking at, like, recipes and great tips on cleaning. And
Well, I want to do the Kendrick Lamar dance.
Oh my gosh.
I
Yeah, you
do.
should. Well, we get some
wanna do
views,
that.
man.
This is how I walk when I walk into my new slab studio.
right? Exactly. You should do that. Yeah, so I look at the dance videos, and then,
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
That'll drive some eyeballs.
I'll
Definitely.
probably fall and slip and fall.
Even better. Even better. Give,
guy.
yeah, it's all about attention these days, right? All about attention. But we're getting kind of towards the end. We always want to ask our entrepreneurs, if there's some advice you'd maybe give to somebody that's maybe thinking about going down the same route you did, wanted to get into the creative jewelry space, or even you seem like you're an OG with the retail. You know a lot about retail and how to do that. What advice would you give somebody that's young, trying to come in and thinking maybe that's something that the business that they want to kind of start? Would you have some advice for them?
I guess my number one thing would be what saved me along the way as I was growing is diversifying your income streams. Do you know what I mean? Because you can't just all in. I mean, some people can, but if you're bootstrapping your business, you usually can't just all in on a store because there are going to be a lot of upfront costs before you start recouping your money. Mm-hmm. And so, like for me, I had the wholesale business, right? So I was able to take money from that and float the store as things grew.
Yeah.
And then in the very, very beginning, even when I started the wholesale business, when I left my job, like I found a little studio space, which was so funny. It was in this building that I loved so much, and I couldn't afford an office space in there, right? It was a mixed use building, and they had a utility closet that they were not using. That was 100 square feet. And I was like, the guy showed me a space and told me the price. And I was like, well, those aren't really in my budget. I'm new. And we were walking out of the building and I was like, what's that? And he was like, that's a utility closet. I was like, would you guys rent it? Because it's empty. And so I rented it.
Oh my gosh.
And my dad and my husband have painted it sky blue, like a soft blue, so it felt like, had outdoors. We went to IKEA, and I got these cloud paintings that, like, made it look like it had, like, little windows or whatever. And I started teaching jewelry classes in there.
Oh.
And so that's how I sort of made ends meet in the beginning while I was
Wow.
trying to grow the wholesale
The rest
business
of
on a
it.
full-time basis. Yeah. So I feel like I've just always kind of had a few things going on to keep the revenue streams, flowing. So that's what I would say for people because it makes the growth not so stressful. And it sort of frees you up to be able to, because, you have to take calculated risks to grow. You know all about that.
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
it's like if you're so tight and so stressed, then you can't afford to take those risks and you might miss some opportunities that can help level up your business, right? So it's like having those additional revenue streams can really help free you up so that you can take advantage of opportunities when they come your way.
And you just like never know also who you're going to meet when
Yep.
you have those certain things, and this might lead to that, and right?
Exactly.
It just
Yeah.
kind of all works
Yeah,
together.
it totally all works out.
So do you still do jewelry classes, and how do I sign up?
Oh my gosh, no, I do not. I get asked that all the
Come
time.
on, let's do
and
it.
I have thought about bringing them back, but I don't know. I think that in this part of my life, my patience isn't there anymore.
You're like, been there, done that, right? No,
No,
thank you.
it's funny. I actually, as a crafty person, I love nothing more than taking a class. I took like a class on precious metal clay jewelry making last week at Las Palmas Arts. She has awesome classes if you want to take them on all different things. But yeah, it's like I so appreciate a good teacher because all the different personalities, right?
Sure.
There's always
You're
the
gonna
person
learn.
that like is like, oh my God, I'm over this. Can you just do it for me? There's the person that's light years ahead and you're all like, slow it down, let's keep up. The person that's behind. And you have to balance all those personalities. And I don't know if I have that anymore.
Well, that sounds like sales because you know what? You deal with all kinds of different
I use
personalities,
it for that,
right?
so I don't know if I have it left for the classes anymore. But I
YouTube.
might. I get asked a lot. I might like for old time's sake just bring one back.
There you go. Breaking
YouTube-
news. Breaking
YouTube
news.
it, right?
Yeah,
Right?
breaking
Breaking
news.
news.
Hey, so we'll be the
got
first.
you on
We'll,
tape
we'll
saying
be the
it.
first to
Right,
know. So
exactly.
we're gonna let you guys know out there. So, but that's awesome. So we're really happy that you came in. Your wealth of
too.
knowledge. You're obviously very talented, and you're an inspiration for the community down here. So where can our followers and people that are watching this find you and your company? Where can they kind of check out your work? Where's a good place to find
So
you?
the store is at 750 North Palm Canyon Drive inside the Flannery Exchange. There's Cafe La Jefa in the front, the coffee shop that's pink. I'm right across the way from that, across the hall. Or you can go to covetps.com to the website and find us. And there's all the information about booking permanent jewelry and things like that on there. Or you can find us on Instagram or TikTok at CovetPS as well.
Awesome.
Good. I gotta check it out.
Everybody go. I went there. A lot of cool stuff. I think, you're gonna see some really interesting and unique stuff on that Instagram page. So if you guys found some value, you guys know the routine. Like, subscribe, and follow, and we'll see you guys next time on CV Hustle.